All right, let's dive right into today's explainer because we are looking at something truly incredible. We're unpacking the spiritual transformation of Taj Bibi, who is just this absolutely fascinating figure from Akbar's era. This was a time in history that was already packed with complex cultural intersections, but her story, it honestly stands in a league of its own. We're not just tracing someone moving from point A to point B on a map. No, we're talking about a profound, absolute pivot of the heart and soul. When we normally think of historical devotion, we kind of picture familiar names following traditional paths, right? Well, Taj Bibi's story throws all those expectations right out the window. It is a brilliant narrative of pure, unyielding devotion that literally shattered conventional boundaries and totally defied everything expected of her royal lineage.
So who exactly was this Mughal royal who became the ultimate symbol of pure Krishna devotion? I mean, it sounds almost like a historical paradox, doesn't it? As the daughter of Padna Khan, Taj Bibi was born directly into the immense wealth, the massive political power, and all those super strict protocols of the Mughal court in Agra. She wasn't born into a family of wandering ascetics, and she definitely wasn't raised in an ashram. She was born right into the glittering center of an empire. To truly wrap our heads around the magnitude of her transformation, we have to keep that starting point in mind. She was deeply, deeply embedded in aristocratic circles where literally every single move was dictated by royal rules. And that makes her eventual shift in faith just completely radical.
Now let's look at how this all started. Her path kicked off with a very traditional, highly expected plan. She was going to leave Agra and travel all the way to Mecca to perform the Hajj. For someone of her social standing, this was the anticipated religious duty. It was what she did. And abandoning a high-profile royal pilgrimage like that wasn't just, a simple change of travel plans. It was a massive, potentially dangerous defiance of everything expected of her. But as her royal entourage was passing through Mathura and Vrindavan, the plan completely fell apart. In the best way possible. She was so deeply moved by the incredible devotional atmosphere of the Braj region that she just stopped. Right there. The historical records tell us she actually never made it to Mecca. Her entire spiritual trajectory pivoted in an instant on the dusty roads of Mathura.
To really put this in perspective, the contrast here couldn't be sharper. On one hand, you have our origins, the politically charged, super-worldly, imposing stone courts of Agra, a place totally governed by hierarchy, wealth, and raw power. On the other hand, you have the ascetic, deeply spiritual, almost magical environment of Vrindavan and Gokul, a place completely governed by surrender. It's like stepping out of one universe and directly into another. She willingly traded the ultimate worldly privilege for total spiritual submission. The atmosphere of Gokul and Vrindavan was just entirely saturated with the presence and the love of Bhagavan Krishna. For her, it wasn't about power or royal bloodlines anymore. It became entirely about shedding her ego.
Now, as you can probably guess, a transition like that is rarely ever smooth. When Taj Bibi first tried to immerse herself in Vrindavan, the local devotional community, well, they understandably hesitated. I mean, think about it from their perspective. Here is this royal figure from a powerful Mughal Muslim family suddenly stepping into their very tight-knit, traditional devotional space. The initial rejection she faced must have felt incredibly isolating. But here's the amazing part. She didn't leave. She stayed. And the undeniable force and sheer sincerity of her awakened bhakti eventually won over everyone's hearts. They looked past the aristocratic background, past the royal clothes, and recognized the absolute truth of her spiritual awakening. She earned her total acceptance not through any royal decree, but through pure, genuine devotion.
So, wanting to deepen her path, she sought out Diksha, which is a formal spiritual initiation, and she actually found her mentor in the highly respected Vaishnava guru, Vittal Maharaj. You'll sometimes hear him referred to as Vitali Maharaj. By taking Diksha under his expert guidance, she officially rooted her soul in the Pushti Marg tradition. And guys, this was no casual weekend hobby for her. Receiving Diksha meant making a rigorous, completely lifelong commitment to her new faith. She was formally tying her very existence to the spiritual lineage of the region, making absolutely sure she had the right philosophical framework to channel all that immense devotion she was feeling.
With this incredible new foundation, she started pouring her inner spiritual state into poetry. Her most famous couplet, known as Hindui, quickly became a hallmark of her devotion. Back in that era, singing and poetry were really the main ways devotees expressed their faith, and Taj Bibi? She absolutely found her true voice here. Just imagine the resonance of that voice for a second. Completely stripped of all royal pretense, no longer barking courtly commands in Agra, but instead echoing beautifully through Vrindavan as she sang these classical verses of just intense outpouring love for Bhagwan Krishna. It really stands as this beautiful, endearing testament to her completely transformed heart.
After her initiation, her everyday life became entirely about sadhana. That's intense spiritual practice that requires the absolute renunciation of worldly attachments. Literally, everything tied to Agra, to Patna Khan, and to her former royal comforts, gone. Left entirely behind, living incredibly simply around the sacred areas of Mathura, Vrindavan, and Gokul, she focused 100% of her energy on the divine. And this meant aggressively stripping away any lingering material desires and dedicating her entire life force to spiritual realization. She moved so gracefully from the ridiculous luxuries of a palace to the austere, hyper-focused life of a true spiritual seeker.
And this spiritual hero's journey actually reached a breathtaking climax during the vibrant, beautifully chaotic colors of the holy festivals. Historical sources actually describe that right in the middle of all the chanting and the flying colors, Taj Bibi experienced a mystical darshan, a profound, direct, divine vision of Bhagwan Krishna. In that moment of intense, joyful celebration, her former identity completely melted away. The boundary between the devotee and the divine just dissolved entirely. It is quite literally the absolute pinnacle of bhakti. It's that moment where the ego disappears completely into the object of its profound love, and there's nothing left behind but pure devotion.
To truly grasp the weight of what she accomplished, history often parallels Taj Bibi with the legendary Mirabai. And when you look at it, the comparison is fascinating. While Mirabai came from royal Rajput origins and Taj Bibi came from the Mughal court, both of these women exhibited an all-consuming devotion that completely shattered the societal expectations that were weighing them down. Both of them totally abandoned palatial wealth for the difficult, austere paths of devotion in Braj. When we look at their lives side by side like this, it becomes so clear that true devotion knows no single origin story. It's this universal pull that can reach right into the most heavily fortified palaces and just transform a life forever.
And you know, her journey isn't just some dusty story from the distant past. Her legacy is very much alive today. You can actually visit her physical samadhi, which is located in the Gokul and Mathura area. In fact, it was recently recognized and beautifully restored by the government. But it serves as way more than just a historical marker for tourists. It stands today as a living monument that actively uplifts Dharma and the local regional culture. It's a space where she is still deeply respected, continuing to fill modern visitors with the joy of her intense spiritual energy, constantly reminding us of her massive historic leap of faith. Ultimately, Taj Bibi is remembered through what I think is just a perfect, lasting metaphor. She is considered a precious, incredibly unique flower in the vast bouquet of devotees offered to Bhagwan Krishna. Think about a giant bouquet made of countless different flowers, each one representing a totally distinct background, a different era, a different path to the divine. Hers absolutely stands out. Because of the immense, almost unimaginable distance she traveled socially, physically, and spiritually to become part of that offering, her flower holds a singular, highly special place in the entire history of bhakti.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to really reflect on. How does Taj Bibi's remarkable story completely change how we view the unifying power of historical devotion? We've just traced an unbelievable interfaith journey of a woman who literally traded a crown for pure love. She overcame deep, painful societal rejection to find ultimate divine acceptance. It really challenges us, doesn't it? It challenges us to look past simple historical labels and recognize the boundless, totally unpredictable nature of genuine spiritual seeking. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into her life. Keep exploring, keep asking the big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.